Let me reveal a reality to you that has to be spoken to here, okay? These are the soldiers. These are the men and the women that go back to their constituencies and their communities, and they fight. They take time from their jobs. They take time from their families. Republicans and Democrats alike, that's what they do. They need to charge these people up. They need to be able to get them on board. But there's another reality that is literally looking down on them. Greg, look at the ring of sweets, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about uniparty, we are strangled by the money reality in our politics.
Last night, Chris Cuomo. Remember Chris Cuomo? Yeah, he's trying to revive his career. We've shown you some of the things he's attempted to do. He had that interview with Tucker Carlson, which was actually rather enlightening, but he's still Chris Cuomo. Don't get me wrong. But he's got a primetime show now on, what's it called again? News Nation. Yeah, News Nation. Sure, why not? So he's doing this News Nation thing, and he's broadcasting from the floor of the convention. And I got to hand it to him. He delivered a 3-minute monologue about the reality of the political parties and the system that we've got right now in America. And I don't have a whole lot to argue with here. I want you to hear it, and then we'll talk about it together. All right? Take a look.
A big theme here at the DNC is that they're going to go after corporate gouging, and they're going to go after corporations, whether it's in taxes, largesse, loopholes. The RNC, we heard the same thing. They're going after the elites, the two sets of rules. Let me reveal a reality to you that has to be spoken to here, okay? These are the soldiers. These are the men and the women that go back to their constituencies and their communities, and they fight. They take time from their jobs. They take time from their families. Republicans and Democrats alike, that's what they do. They need to charge these people up. They need to be able to get them on board. But there's another reality that is literally looking down on them. Greg, look at the ring of sweets, okay? This is not unique to Democrats. There is a game of money. When people talk about uniparty, we are strangled by the money reality in our politics. Those suites start at 500 grand. You think there's like a teacher group up in there? You think it's like the Cub Scouts of Columbia County, South Carolina, that's up in those boxes? Some of them are lobbies and good things. The media boxes, you think they're free? Why do you think I'm on the floor? News Nation is not a broke company. Nexstar is a massive organization. We are corporate media. We don't have one of those boxes because that's the game. You pay to play. Those boxes are filled with the same people that they say they're going to regulate. They are literally looking down on the faithful and being told, yeah, we're going to break down on them. We're going to make them pay their share. They paid $500, $700, $1 million, $1.5 million to have those seats. They get hotel suites that are probably gifted to the party. And the same thing is true with the Republican side. And they're going to take them down. They're going to change how it is. They are looking down from on high at the people who make the difference in their communities. And that is the reality of politics. And I had my producer walk around and show you those suites. Now, they're not all the same. They're not all the same. But the reality is, in 2000, they spent $300 million on presidential campaigns. 24 years later, you know what they're expected to spend? $10 billion. Do you know how much money Harris has raised in the last couple of weeks? Hundreds of millions. And that's success. A lot of it's small donor. A lot of it isn't. The most dangerous money in politics is now legal money because of Citizens United. You've got to know this. The idea that they can fight against it is almost laughable. It's almost laughable. So look and listen when you are told these things. Because I don't care what they promise you. Not here tonight, not at the RNC, not that Trump knows them, not that they don't own them. He did one of the biggest fundraisers I've ever heard of in my life out where I live. Millions of dollars a plate. That's the reality of politics.
All right. So listen, and he's getting applauded for keeping it real and, doing that thing down there. And I just want to forgive me if I chip away a little bit at his pristine little pedestal that he's sanctimoniously standing on. He's making a good point, except when he said, and it was the same at the RNC. No, I'm sorry. Listen, I know I'm a partisan hack, right? Of course, I wear my politics on my sleeve. I'm a Republican, and I'm going to deliver you my opinion, but I'm also going to back it up with facts. And if you disagree with me, you have every right to say so in the comments section. But this whole idea that the Republicans and the Democrats are both equally guilty of what he's decrying right now is absolute balderdash. For a couple of reasons, and let me point them out here first. First of all, his point about how Republicans say it too. Here, let's listen to it together, and maybe you can check exactly what he said, and if you heard it the same way I heard it.
Whether it's in taxes, largesse, loopholes. The RNC, we heard the same thing. They're going after the elites.
There it is. Now, when the Republicans say that we're going after the elites and we're going to get the elites out of politics, do you immediately say, oh, he's talking about Comcast and AT&T and major oil corporations and Verizon? Is that what you hear? Because that's not what I hear. And that's not what Republicans mean. See, he's talking about the hypocrisy of Republicans and Democrats saying that they're going to rail against corporations and they're going to hit hard against corporate greed. And yet, look up in the skyboxes. That's all owned by corporations. It's all hypocrisy. When was the last time you heard Republicans say that they were going to go after corporate greed? I hardly ever. I don't think I've ever heard that. Unless it's specific to one sector, the pharmaceutical companies or the one specific sector or something. But no, actually, Republicans are pretty free market and pretty capitalist. There's no hypocrisy. Now, you can quarrel with Republicans for being in bed with corporations. That's fine. But you certainly can't call them hypocrites because they're not sitting up there saying, we got to end all these big corporations. No, I mean, let's talk about big tech, but it has nothing to do with the size of their corporations or their tax advantages. It has to do with their use of their power and influence to meddle in our elections and silence individuals from being able to speak freely on social media platforms. But that's not going after big corporations because we don't like their power and their influence and the money that they're able to make. No, screw it. Make as much money as you want, corporations. In fact, we'll lower your tax rates if it means you're going to hire more people and build our economy. So this is all a red herring when he says both sides are equally guilty. Bull. It's Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden who stand up there screaming, shaking their fists, saying, we're going to get these corporations out of the government and we're going to get their influence gone and we're going to confiscate their money. And they do nothing. They write tax codes that allow those corporations to have loopholes that you can drive a Mack truck through. Meanwhile, you're the one who gets squeezed. You're the one who has to pay the pony, pay the piper and the pony while you're at it. Now, when Republicans say they're going after the elites, they're talking about the smart set who's in charge of your lives, who infiltrate into the government and actually make policy without actually ever having to bother to run for office. Railing against the elites in our government and in academia and in the media, that's not an attack on corporations. And yes, good for Chris Cuomo to admit that News Nation is owned by Nexstar. Nexstar Media Group is actually the largest owner of independent television stations in this country. Second quarter of this year, they had a net revenue of $1.27 billion, which is a record for them. News Nation is owned by a huge corporation. The reason they don't have a box at the Democrat National Convention is not because they can't afford it, and it's not because of the way Chris Cuomo just said, we're not going to play that game. No, it's because News Nation is a startup. It's a new venture for Nexstar, and they decided not to allocate that kind of budget for that sort of thing. Give me a break. Everybody knows that if News Nation were 10 years older and had more revenue coming in, Nexstar would absolutely buy a box for them. And Chris would be sitting in it. You didn't hear Chris Cuomo railing like this when he was working for CNN, at the time owned by AT&T, while he was sitting in his beautiful luxury box. Is this some new revelation that Chris Cuomo has, discovered? Or did he believe this then? He just wouldn't say anything about it because, hey, I'm CNN, so I'm not going to upset the apple cart. Don't buy this whole populist thing. Now, listen, what he's saying is true in terms of money in politics. Absolutely. And we should get money out of politics. If you can come up with a good way how, I'd love to. But here's the problem in a free society. If you're free to make money and you're free to spend that money however you'd like, then yes, you're free to spend that money on politics, even if it means that you're doing it to hopefully influence the candidate of your choice. The solution is to have full transparency so you know exactly who's spending money on what, so the American people can then judge for themselves. Oh, okay, you want to vote for the Democrats? Well, that's money that's coming from labor unions and from people who want to kill babies. That's all. Because you see, Chris Cuomo, as a dyed-in-the-wool, from birth and all the way to death, party partisan Democrat will say the solution is to get all the money out of politics and have all the campaigns publicly financed. And then you go, oh, really? Oh, so we're going to take all the money so nobody can contribute, even labor unions? Oh, no. Labor unions are okay because that's money coming from people, not corporations. See, this is what he's getting at. And this is who they are. And this is how they operate. Do you notice how nowhere in there, while he's standing on the floor of the DNC decrying all the big money in politics, does he go after the teachers union and the government employees union and the lawyers? What about the lawyers that spend so much money trying to influence that party? These are the top donors of the Democrats. Yeah, you're right, Chris. There's a lot of hypocrisy in that room. You might want to watch News Nation on rerun to see the biggest hypocrite of them all. All right, that's not fair. Chris is not the biggest hypocrite of them all. Oprah Winfrey is the biggest hypocrite of them all. Oprah Winfrey, a billionaire who has her own multi-million-dollar mega influential media corporation that she created. She stands on that stage trying to act like a populist and a voice of the people while wearing, what are we guessing, a $10,000 suit? And boy, look at that rock on the finger. That's a hell of a ring. And her entire message to you, this is a woman who was born and raised lower or middle class in the South in America as a Black woman in the 60s and the 70s. She came from there to become one of the most, if not the most influential media figures on the planet, worth well over $1 billion. And what was her message to the American people last night?
From the redwood forest, love those redwoods, to the Gulf Stream waters, I've seen racism and sexism and income inequality and division. I've not only seen it, at times I've been on the receiving end of it.
Yep. That's her message to you. This country sucks. This country that gave me the opportunities to achieve the highest level of achievement that our nation has to offer. As a Black woman, my message to you is this country is racist and sexist, and there's income inequality, and I've had to deal with it. Income inequality. Oh, honey, how much do you make for a speech? How much do you make on your TV shows, even when they're failures? How much do you make sure you've carved out for yourself? Income inequality? Income inequality. Yeah, I'd like to talk to her about some income inequality. Make no mistake, there is a lot of money on display at the Democratic National Convention. There's a lot of hypocrisy on display at the Democratic National Convention. There's a lot of power coming from corporations, and they're wielding it, they're flexing it, and they're using it to influence every single politician on stage at the Democratic National Convention. The only thing I beg you to take from this is that the people delivering you the messages about all of that greed and all of that corporate corruption, the last people you should be hearing from about it are people like Chris Cuomo and Oprah Winfrey.